Thank you. I want to thank the senator from Iowa, Senator Harkin, for his kind words and also for his great leadership on the HELP Committee. We have a big area that we cover: health, education, labor, and pensions. And we have a lot of bills that we're working on, and I'm pleased at the bipartisan way that we're able to work on them, his staff and my staff, and actually the members of the committee are very engaged on the issues that we're covering, and they're very important issues for America. I came to the floor to talk about a little different issue than what we've been talking about, but this is another issue for the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, and this comes under that category of labor. It's safety, mine safety. And the reason that I'm here on the floor is that I've seen some articles appearing in different parts of the United States that are inaccurate on what's happening on mine safety. And so I want to take a moment to clear up some of that confusion that's been caused by a breakdown of bipartisan negotiations on the mine safety legislation this last week. The terrible tragedy that occurred in West Virginia this past April focused us again on the strength of our federal mine safety laws and regulations. As a senator from a state that leads the nation in coal production, we do about 40% of all the nation's coal. My county accounts for most of that. We have 92 trains a day that leave our county. That's over 1 million tons of coal a day. And I've always considered workplace safety as one of the most important missions of the HELP Committee. The first bill that I did was on OSHA. And I've been pleased to work across the aisle to improve safety, and that's exactly what I've tried to do this year, as well as with my colleagues from West Virginia and members of the committee under the direction of Senator Harkin, who's been very helpful on this. As my colleagues well know, negotiations have been making significant progress until we ran into a stumbling block known as the election cycle. The staffs of 7 senators had been meeting several times a week for over 2 months, and all through the recess period. Agreements had been formed on over a dozen important proposals. I think there were 14 that they were in agreement on, 7 more that were just waiting for approval to see if there was agreement or if there's some more changes needed. And then there were 5 or 6 that the senators themselves had to work out. Several of those important ones were right on the brink of compromise or agreement when the talks were abruptly called off until after the election. Despite what's been said in the press and on the floor, the simple fact is that we might well have had an agreement by now if all of the people would have stayed at the table and decided that this didn't need to be an election issue. This very process of requesting unanimous consent on a bill, which could happen, would not even be on the bill that we've been working on. It would be on one that was introduced before this process came into being. And everyone knows that that wouldn't have sufficient support to pass as part of political theater. So certainly it's not for me to consult on the political calculations of my colleagues, but it seems to me that political theater and failing to work together to get important things like this done are exactly what the American people are so frustrated at this year. That's what all the passion's about. We're serving this nation best when we can work together to accomplish the people's business. The formula is not that complicated, and really anybody can do it. You just have to bring both sides together for discussions. You have to establish agreed upon goals and work toward agreement on those goals. You have to consult with stakeholders that will be affected by the changes being discussed. That's anybody who's going to be affected. Once substantial agreement has been reached, determine which issues the side will never be able to agree upon and set those aside for another day's debate. That's what I call my 80-20 rule. There are some issues in every topic that we talk about over here that have already been talked about so long that both sides are already so polarized that you mention one word with that particular issue and everybody plunges into the weeds and do the same arguments they've always done without listening to what the other side is saying. And I have found that you can work through those issues as well, as long as you can get people back up to the surface instead of out of the weeds and get them to figure out something that allows both sides to save face. Yeah, there's that problem around here too. This formula has worked in the past for the very issue we're discussing today, which is mine safety. In 2006, when I was the chairman of the HELP Committee, we were faced with a string of tragic mine accidents in West Virginia. In response to the first one, Senator Rockefeller and Senator Kennedy and I organized a trip to the Sago mine in West Virginia to meet with the miners, to meet with the victims' families, to meet with the investigators. The three of us, along with Senator Isaacson, Murray, and Byrd, then began negotiations, and we were able to come up with an agreement in less than 2 months. It was called the Miner Act, which was the first major revision of mine safety and health since 1977. It's got to be some kind of a record around here, but it was really important, and it was worked in a bipartisan way. And that was done through a recess period as well. Agreements have been formed on over a dozen important proposals, as I mentioned, and it could be real close to an agreement. It would be a different agreement than some of the ones that have been that might be put forward, and I'm hoping that they won't be put forward. The people will come back to the table, work through the time until elections are over, and get this finished up. This bill made important improvements to the emergency preparedness of underground mines, this one for the Sago mine, and has fostered tremendous improvements, particularly in communications technology, in the adaptability of the underground environment. We're talking about being able to talk through several hundred feet, in some cases 1,000 feet of granite. Ever try to get a cell phone to work through a mountain or a building? You'll see what kind of a problem they've got. But tremendous improvements have been made because there's a market for it, mining's increasing, and the safety is essential, and we made it a part of that Miner Act. Now, one of the reasons I'm so proud of the Miner Act is that we wrote it in the way I believe all legislation should be drafted. We brought in all of the stakeholders. We brought in the union, we brought in the non-union people, we brought in the industry, we brought in the safety experts, we brought in the investigators. Now, the Mine Safety and Health Administration and all of these people sat around a table and worked through the biggest safety concerns and the best way to approach them. Because of the bipartisan nature of the bill, it sailed through a committee markup. It was passed by the Senate unanimously a week later. That's as bipartisan as you can get. And it passed the House 2 weeks later, and there were only 37 House members out of 435 opposing it. One more week later, it was signed into law. Mr. President, that's how laws get done and really make a difference. During my 10 years as the chairman of the HELP Committee, we were able to move 27 bills to enactment that way. In total, we reported 35 bills out of committee, and of those 35, 25 passed the Senate. That's the kind, we ran out of time on the others, so we'd have gotten those too. That's the kind of cooperation and accomplishment that Americans are demanding, especially on an issue as important and timely as workplace safety. Every day, thousands of Americans go to work in the energy production industry. The work they do benefits every single one of us and underpins our entire economy. This year, major accidents in the energy-producing sector have taken the lives of 29 men in West Virginia, 6 in Connecticut, 7 in Washington State, 3 in Texas, and 11 off the coast of Louisiana. If there was ever a time to work together to actually enact legislation, as opposed to playing political theater, this should be it. It can be done. There is progress being made. My staff has not walked away from the table, and I resent any articles that say that. I am impressed with and in agreement with the agreements that have been made so far. I keep constant track of those. It shouldn't take very long to finish the 6 or 7 that are very close to being resolved, and then it shouldn't take very long for the members to sit down and resolve the ones that are left after that. So we can have a mine safety bill. We can't have it this week. I'm sure we can't have it next week, and the House has already done a mine safety bill, so we have to conference that. So it's going to take a little bit of time, although the bill that we're working on, I think in the bipartisan way, could be done unanimously on this side, and the House, when we do it unanimously, is very likely to follow very closely, follow that suit and finish it up as well. And I think that's what the American people expect. So Articles about things falling apart aren't nearly as useful as keeping people together.